We are also joined by Lucas Tomlinson live from Washington. Lucas, it's a wonderful day. We got a lot of breaking news. What do you have for us?
Well, it's very notable, Tommy, when the Pakistani prime minister said Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey were behind some of the mediation here. We've been seeing not just the Pakistanis, but the Qataris. It's very clear that everyone in the region, including the United States and Iran, wanted this war to end, and that's what we're seeing happen. And certainly there's a lot of pressure, not just from the U.S. side, not just from the Iranian side, but from Gulf allies as well as Turkey wanted to see the war ending, and that's what we're going to see here. However, we're dealing with multiple governments in Iran. You got, the IRGC, you've got the regular government, Pezeshkian, the president, and Araghchi, the foreign minister, and so, which side wins out is what we're going to see in the future, because the IRGC, remember, they're sitting on a lot of money. They control a lot of the oil, a lot of the businesses. They do not want to see the war ended. So it would not be surprising if in the days to come you hear about drone strikes, missile attacks. Remains to be seen. Is this a memorandum of understanding that we're signing here for the next 60 days, a wait-and-see effect? I think everybody needs to take a breath here just to see how this deal works itself out, because we've been here before, maybe not with a full signing of something, but before we pop the champagne here, particularly in the West, we do have to see how this bears out, guys.
Cautiously optimistic for sure. So,
there we go.
Yes, in the last hour of
evidence that the Iranians were going to launch a large number of missiles at the Israelis. With our communication with them over the course of getting to this signed peace deal, they assured us that they were not going to respond to the Israelis, and they were going to sign this agreement and get to peace.
Yeah, Lucas, we were so happy to be joined by the vice president on such a momentous day. We've all been waiting for it. Again, cautiously optimistic. But what do you make of what the vice president shared with us on that front, and how Israel ties into all of this?
Well, Iran has always wanted to link a ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel, of course, Hezbollah being the crux of that. And what we've seen actually in the last 48 hours is Hezbollah continuing to launch rockets into Israel. And so what we have to see in the next few days, of course, while Iran and the United States say that there's a ceasefire, are we going to see continued drone strikes from Hezbollah in Lebanon? And Israel's been very clear. They are forced to respond to these. There's, hundreds of thousands of Israelis that live in northern Israel. They do not want to be these civilians. They do not want to be the target of these drone strikes. So Israel said they're going to respond to this. Whether Hezbollah keeps to this ceasefire, that remains to be seen. But from the beginning, Iran wanted to link Lebanon to this ceasefire agreement. That's something the Trump administration wanted to separate. But clearly, it is all linked because, of course, Hezbollah answers to Iran. So we need to see how Hezbollah is going to respond to this news. If Hezbollah keeps
sanctions relief that's apparently embedded within the deal, there's also at least the implicit, if not explicit, stick of renewed military force if Iran isn't holding up its end of the bargain, especially, let's say, on the nuclear program. Trey was just talking about this a little bit, which is the maintenance of U.S. forces and assets in that region nearby, just to maybe signal to the Iranians that we're not going anywhere, and if you're going to mess around or cause problems, we're still here, and you're going to find out about it. Tell us about that component of it and the assets that you think will stick around as opposed to being pulled back.
Well, Guy, you still have 2 aircraft carrier strike groups in the region. You have the USS Tripoli amphibious ready group still in the region. So you have dozens of warships, 2 aircraft carriers, submarines, and, of course, 82nd Airborne Division still has their alert brigade in the region. They're probably not coming home anytime soon because they want to see how the next 60 days goes with this agreement. And make no mistake, when the blockade lifts, that's instant money for Iran. They're going to be able to get their oil out of the region. The big question is, what does Iran have to do to begin getting full sanctions relief, potentially billions of dollars more? They're already going to get billions from the blockade being lifted. That's the part we spoke to a senior administration official on Friday about this, and I asked that official point blank, what does Iran have to do first to get sanctions relief? And while there is talk about Iran pledging to scrap its nuclear program indefinitely, there was also the same official mentioned workarounds and the first steps towards getting rid of their nuclear program. And that's where it gets a little squishy, right? We went from is Iran going to receive billions of dollars in sanctions relief? Is it the start of dismantling the nuclear program? Is it the complete scrapping of the nuclear program? Is it getting the highly enriched uranium out there? You also have low enriched uranium out there, not to geek out too much on 3.6% spinning of tubes, but when are they going to receive the big cash windfall? But certainly lifting the U.S. blockade means billions of dollars for Iran, no question, just in terms of getting Iranian ships out there.
Well, Lucas, on that point specifically, that senior administration official, the call that went down, it was very specifically stated, the dismantling and basically erasure of the nuclear program, not facilities, not highly enriched uranium, but of their nuclear program. And so I guess the question is, maybe you don't have this answer, but you're closer to it than we are. Do you think that the president got that assurance from Iran? Like, I understand there's a difference between saying it, writing it in paper, and doing it. But do you think that the president got that assurance from Iran that they are willing to essentially dismantle their nuclear program completely in order to stay alive and stay in charge of their country?
Joey, the President of the United States, the Vice President are not going to sign on to agreement unless they receive those assurances. Of course, the million-dollar question, the billion-dollar real question is, will Iran follow through with that? I mean, we've heard from a number of experts in recent months, General Jacquin, is whatever Iran agrees to, the big question is, will they follow through? And that's where, are there going to be inspections? How do we know? Are we going to take Iran's word for it? That would make most people, most of our viewers, very uncomfortable with that, I'm sure. Maybe inspectors from the IAEA on the ground. Are there going to be U.S. forces on the ground? We heard, from that senior administration official is saying some of this highly enriched uranium is buried like a skyscraper deep underground. That's going to take a lot of time to work out. And so, do have to wait and see with this. But certainly it appears to be a good step. But again, the verification is a big part of this agreement. And that's one of the reasons why U.S. forces are going to be hanging around the region on station.
Yeah. Lucas, it sounds like from the president and the vice president, the U.S. got everything it wanted. And in turn, Iran is going to get the immediate lifting of this blockade, which means millions of dollars that will flow into their country right away. And then the eventual easing of sanctions. What else is Iran looking to get? What else are they getting that you know of, if anything?
There's no question. If you're sitting there at the head of the IRGC, you want to see billions of dollars rolling in the country. If the president, the foreign minister, you want to see this blockade lifted. There's no question. One of the reasons we're at this moment in history is because of the U.S. blockade. Over 2 months now has been strangling Iran economically. Now that this blockade's lifted and billions of dollars, are flowing through, where does that money go? It's something to follow. We have to stay on it. The U.S. military and the intelligence community is going to be watching this. But certainly, when you think about where we've come from, at one point the president was declaring unconditional surrender. Many people say we're not there right now.
On that call, that official said that if this carries forward, and we're jumping a few steps here, that Gulf countries would invest in Iran and the infrastructure to the table to Iran, kind of to piggyback on Anita's question.
Well, at the outset of the war, the UAE froze billions of dollars in Iranian assets. And we saw the report from Reuters saying that the UAE is set to unleash billions of dollars in sanctions relief. Now, while the UAE denied that, we have to wait and see. And is that part of sanctions relief? When you hear about Gulf countries helping out with the reconstruction of Iran, isn't that something we heard in Washington about, fixing some of the stuff, frankly, the U.S. military blew up over the course of 13,000 airstrikes. And that's where things get a little tricky, right? We hear about no sanctions relief until Iran, proves that they've scrapped their nuclear program. But then we see this story in Reuters, this report about billions are set to be unleashed. Now, the UAE denied the claim. It's something that everybody has to watch and be very clear-eyed about.
Lucas, kind of to that point, as we're all just digesting this, and there's so much that we don't know, there's so much that you don't know, we're still waiting. But, as we talk about what Iran is getting out of this and what the president of the United States are getting out of this, you have a country that's been hell-bent on destroying Israel, destroying America, having a nuclear weapon, and now it would seem that they are willing, or they've been forced to, give all of that up. But it's also hard to believe, because they were so hell-bent on those goals, that now they'll decide, you know what, we just want to have a good economy, and we just want to be good to our people. That's a pretty hard pivot. So from your understanding of the region and from your understanding of what this means for them, do you think that is possibly in the cards for them, that they will just make a hard left?
Tommy, you're right to be skeptical. I mean, we know the history of what we're dealing with. 47 years of the post-Iranian revolution. We know what we're dealing with when talking about the IRGC. Again, we're dealing with multiple governments in Iran. This is not like negotiating with any other country. There's different factions, different interests. The IRGC does not want to see this war end. They do not want to see the billions they have, in businesses and oil revenues around the country taken away from them. And while there perhaps is some internal dialogue and with the president, Pezeshkian, and the foreign minister, it's going to be very challenging. I think everybody is right to be very skeptical. I'm sure the president, the vice president, and the entire U.S. government is very skeptical. It's really a wait and see right now, Tommy, as I think I heard in your voice. Everybody should be very skeptical about what's happening. You can sign this piece of paper. It's going to open up a 60-day ceasefire period. We're hearing about, potentially billions of dollars. Certainly, you're going to get that with ending the U.S. naval blockade of Iran. Now we have to see, is Iran really going to scrap their program? And again, what's the verification method? Are we just going to take their word for it? Certainly, we've got birds in space that are looking down over Iran. We can see a lot of what they're doing. There's no question. And certainly, there are spies on the ground that hopefully give us this information. But people should be skeptical, and I'm sure the U.S. government is skeptical about what comes next.
So I want to explore, Lucas, a point that you've now touched on a couple times, and I think it's a very important one, and it's one of the questions we've actually raised at this table in discussing this over the course of months. Let's say that there is a large, even heavy faction of the Iranian regime, the potential to undermine from within this deal moving forward. How would the U.S. sort of weigh that and decide whether or not Iran is still making a good faith effort overall? These are sort of potential complications moving forward here about whether or not the regime, even if it wants to, can actually deliver on what some of them are promising.
That's what makes it so complicated, Guy. We're really dealing with three different governments. You have the president, you've got the IRGC, you have the Bajij, who answer to a whole other crew. And so right now, that's what makes this whole thing complicated. Is the IRGC going to undermine this? We heard about drone attacks in the last few days against commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, just when the president and the vice president seem to be making a breakthrough with the Iranian government. That is going to be the big question: is are there these interests in the IRGC with the Bajij who are going to, stymie any kind of peace agreement? And when these attacks do happen, I'm sure they are, where Hezbollah launches more rockets into northern Israel, does that scrap the agreement, or we take a wait-and-see approach? Is there some kind of counterattack? That's where this thing gets very complicated. It's just who are we dealing with, and also are there elements inside Iran? Remember, there's more people and land inside Iran than Iraq and Afghanistan combined. That's what we're dealing with, guys. It's an enormous country, some 90 million people, a lot of different factions. Again, we're dealing with three different governments inside.
Fox News do. 24/7 Cable News, Fox News Channel, FNC, is an American conservative cable television network that broadcasts breaking news, political commentary, and business reporting. Opinion and primetime programming. Alongside daytime straight news reporting, the network is widely known for its highly rated primetime conservative commentary shows like The Five, Hannity, Jesse Waters Primetime, and Gutfeld. Digital and streaming options. They operate the Fox News website and mobile apps for live breaking alerts, as well as Fox Nation, a standalone subscription streaming service featuring original documentaries and lifestyle content. Common things people search for. If you were trying to figure out how to watch or contact them, here are the quick directions. How do I watch Fox News live? You can stream it live via the Fox One app through their website if you log in with a cable satellite provider, or via live TV streaming services like Fubo TV, Hulu Plus Live TV, YouTube TV, and Sling TV. How do I download the app? The official Fox News Daily Breaking News app is available on both the Google Play Store for Android and the Apple App Store for iOS devices. How do I contact them? You can submit tips, feedback, or technical issues directly through their official help center at link-to-help.foxnews.com. What exactly were you trying to find out or do with Fox News? Let me know and I can give you the exact steps or information. You can check out the Fox News YouTube channel to watch their latest breaking news clips, interviews, and show highlights directly.